SwingNation, people grooving together.
Hey everybody, it's Rick Panganiban welcoming you to a very special SwingNation online conversation on LGBTQ issues in the Lindy Hop scene, in the Lindy Hop community. We've got some fantastic speakers, just folks that we're hanging out with and wanted to get their perspectives, just to kind of bring you up to date on how this happened. We kind of fell into this.
You stirred the pot, Rick.
I did stir the pot. I didn't stir the pot. I literally
don't say like, oh, it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened, guys.
So I kind of naively just suggested like, hey, maybe we should think of a different name for this one dance contest. All these things came out of it, all these women's issues, all these issues of representation, of diversity, including gay people, LGBTQ people in the Lindy Hop community. And that just all over the place are all these interesting conversations and debates and arguments that happened from Reddit to Facebook to Yehoodi. People are like, well, we should talk more about this. And I'm like, well, I'm not qualified. I'm definitely not the person to kind of come in and represent anything, but let's get some other smart people to come in and give us their perspectives. So we kind of put the call out. So let me introduce our folks that we've got on the call. So we've got Lori Taniguchi. Hey, Lori, how you doing? Say hi.
Hi. Oh, shit. Sorry. For a second there, I thought just like.
So Lori is a good friend. She's a San Francisco Bay Area dancer, instructor, and organizer at Wednesday Night Hop, which happens on Wednesdays, believe it or not. Yeah. Anything else, Lori, about you that they should know about?
I think that's pretty much it. I'm married. I have a dog. He has 3 legs. I teach private lessons if you're in the Bay Area.
How long have you been dancing, Lori?
10 plus years.
Nice.
And this month I'm also teaching at some other places because we do kind of like rotate instructors around at all these different venues. We're so lucky in the San Francisco Bay Area to have so many different places to dance. So right now I'm teaching on Tuesdays at the Breakaway in Oakland, and I'm also teaching with Nathan Diaz at Mission Mondays. But yeah, there's just a ton of other places that I show up at. So come ask me to dance, please.
And we'll post in the links later some ways you can find out about more about Lori. We're also pleased to have Hallie Kuperman, owner of the beautiful Century Ballroom in Seattle. That's been around since '97.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. So thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And we very soon are going to be joined by another dancer that you may have heard of, Adam Brozowski, who is logging in live from Vienna, Germany, Vienna, Austria. He's having some technical issues, so he'll be joining us in just a few minutes. So it'll be awesome to have him. So first of all, happy Pride.
Yay! It's
happy Pride.
We didn't plan on this being around during Pride Month, but it just kind of worked out that way. So I'm glad it did. I don't want to kind of monopolize the conversation, but I wanted to suggest that we kind of go in the Wayback Machine just to start and give a little bit of context about, from your own perspectives, what you know about the history of LGBTQ folks in the Lindy Hop scene. And, obviously this is a new phenomenon. At least from what I know, for example, I know that there was at least one gay member of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, Al Mins. So obviously, even from the earliest days of Lindy Hop, there have been gay people, there have been queer people in the community.
Can I just say, Rick, I totally didn't know that until you just said that right now.
Yeah.
Dude!
We can actually post a link.
I've been missing out.
Yeah. Really interesting, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what Seattle, what the scene has been like in the past, and what your experience has been.
Well, I think if I can only go back as far as I can go back. So I've been dancing for about 25 years, and I started as a swing dancer, Lindy Hopper, and also as a country western two-stepper in the gay community. And so interestingly, I think that at the time I was probably the only gay Lindy Hopper that I knew right away. Hey, Brozowski. Sup?
Hi, guys.
Hey, Adam.
Hi, Adam!
Very blonde and tan.
A little bit. Thank you.
But I think so at that time, there were a lot of gay people who were dancing around anyway. They were just doing East Coast swing and country western two-step. And so when I started teaching, which was probably, if this is 94, 93, 94, if you count that as the beginning of the gay Lindy Hop scene in my world, there were 100 people who took that first class.
Wow.
99 of them, I think, were women, probably. No, that a little bit less than that, but it were almost all women. And that was the first class I ever taught. So there were a lot of people interested, although there were, I was taking when Frankie was coming out here. And that's who I was taking from initially. A lot of those people are still dancing, but I was probably the one person who was a female lead and gay that I know of. But then when you bring all these other people, when I started teaching, you saw a lot of other people dancing and they were learning to Lindy Hop. I don't consider them to be, people would say, well, they weren't really in the scene necessarily, but they were, what we were creating had a place for everybody to be. So they wouldn't have made it into probably the scene of everybody who's traveling around the world dancing Lindy Hop, but they're gay and they Lindy Hop.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned ballroom, so there were other dances at the time that people were also doing?
Well, I took from some, obviously, I learned somewhere, and so I'm not sure what you're asking when I mentioned ballroom.
Like waltzing, salsa, other forms of dance, or was it really like a Lindy Hop community, or were they doing a lot of different dances?
No, I mean, I took from a place that taught everything. And and then I also went to a different club and did country western two-step and waltzing and East Coast swing. And, so but the place that I learned to swing dance was straight, a straight club, a dance studio, whatever you want to call it. So.
I mean, that's basically every place, right? Like everything is assumed straight unless specifically stated gay, kind of a situation.
That's the thing about what was then called the Timberline, which was a gay bar, basically, that was a huge country western bar, but also did these other dance forms. And so that's where I was able to, I was actually able to bring Lindy Hop into a different place. So.
Nice. Awesome. Lori, do you want to share a little bit about anything that you know about the history of a queer community involved in Lindy Hop?
So I started dancing about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, I think. It's hard to put a finger on it. And as a dancer, once again, just going out to dances, I didn't really go to particularly queer spaces for dancing. I do know that there is an organizer in San Francisco who does have very specific queer spaces for dancing and is very active in promoting that. I've never lived in the city and I've never gone to that, but that's been around for a long time, and it's San Francisco, so there's a lot of queer identities kind of floating around just simply because of the demographic of the metropolitan area. Yeah, I do want to say, just historically, from a long-range historical perspective, that especially for cis folks, folks who represent gender conforming to the gender they were assigned at birth, it's really hard to tell if someone is an alternate sexuality on the dance floor. So, in terms of visibility, and this is Pride, so we're thinking a lot about visibility right now, we always say, you probably have met someone who's gay or a different sexuality or bi or something. At some point, you just don't know it because we don't sit around, we don't go in, we're like, hi, would you like to dance? By the way, I like to have sex with women. Not happening.
Adam's never said that.
Adam has never said that, I'm sure, with any levity.
True.
So I think that it's important to also, when we think about the history of LGBTQ+, we're also talking visible history of LGBTQ+, right? We're talking the ones who are talking about it, are visible because they are gender nonconforming, or maybe they're different in some other kind of visible lifestyle way, but that there are people in this umbrella who aren't going to necessarily show that, and so are actually seamless sort of integrations with, you know, a default straight dance community. So yeah, the history is we have always been there. You just maybe never noticed.
Oh, absolutely. Very, very good point. And I see we're joined by Adam. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, Rick, I'm great. How are you?
Great. Glad you're able to join us from all the way from Vienna. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Hi.
So
Sorry, I'm late, guys.
no worries. You're exactly where we want you. So we were talking earlier about some other. You're probably the most well-traveled of all of us on this call. So I guess what's your take on kind of the going back in time where the queer community has interacted with Lindy Hop in the past?
Well, I can speak about what I know from my experience with as soon as I came out and knew who I was, I started to become more interested because everyone in the Lindy Hop community, at least when I grew up dancing, was, you know, like a history nerd. So I started to do some research on the queer involvement in the Harlem Renaissance. And there's a lot of information out there about dancers, about clubs, about band leaders. Most notably, there's a great stride piano player named Gladys Bentley, who is also known as Fatso Bentley, who was an outed lesbian stride piano player. She had her own club. She worked with Erskine Hawkins. She had like a 40-year career. Incredible stride piano player. And her club is on the Harlem nightlife map, actually. I started to get a little bit interested in kind of the historical stuff because there was a lot of queer and gay stuff going on in Harlem in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I can also speak. I can also speak about now, having traveled a lot. It's very interesting. Right now it's very different everywhere you go. There's so much going on with gay rights at the moment, not just gay rights, LGBTQA. Someone called it alphabet soup, because our abbreviation keeps getting longer and longer. So it's really different everywhere you go right now. But one thing that came up recently was there was a dancer. I started this Facebook group that's called LGBTQ plus Swing Dancers Network. And someone posted on there and said, hey, everybody, really quick, I need some documentation of same-sex couples dancing together because I have this person who asked me to perform Lindy Hop, but they said that because it's a historical dance, they want it to be presented in the historically correct way, which is, in this person's mind, only a man and only a woman. And so, of course, like, you know, we all got on there and we're like sending in videos, vintage clips of guys dancing together, of women dancing together at the 1939 New York World's Fair. There's clips from the Savoy of this happening. So there's that side of the history. And then also, like, my personal experience, I started dancing in the mid-90s in Seattle alongside Miss Kuperman, the fabulous Hallie. And things have changed so much. I mean, when I first started dancing, if I'm a guy and I wanted to follow, the response usually was, when I was a teenager, was like someone would kind of dance with me for like a half of the song as kind of as a joke. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, all right, that's enough of that, you know. Whereas nowadays we have some really amazing leaders and really amazing followers who are female or male, or not the usual typical thing. So I think things are changing a lot, but there's still a lot to talk about with that. I answered more of that question than you asked, but
Go Adam. You're like, get started, and you're just like, let's roll.
Yeah. But you guys have both mentioned a couple interesting point, which is, do we need to kind of separate this question of men following and women leading from talking about queer people in the scene, because those are not the same things? It feels stupid to say that, but I think we need to say that, right?
It's weird, right? Like, it's a huge umbrella, and under that umbrella is sexuality and gender variance and romantic preferences, and I mean, just so much about our personal lives that you usually never discuss on the dance floor. So it's so funny how we kind of also link that together in our brains. I had this really interesting conversation with a friend where I was like, hey, you know, you like women, I like women. Technically, our sexuality is the same. He's like, wait. I'm like, think about that for a quick second. Only because I'm cis female does this become a different, you know, unique situation. So there's like a lot more in common with us on a human level, I think, than we give ourselves credit for. And there's a lot of stuff that's different that doesn't make any difference to our interests either. So sorry, that was a rambling answer. I wish I could have like made that a little better.
Well, I thought it was a good answer.
Okay.
I thought it was a good answer. I think that the broader topic obviously here is diversity, and it's about how do we be an inclusive community for all sorts of different types of people. And I think that, I mean, for example, I'm male and I'm a leader primarily. So, but I'm also gay. So I have some, you know, I represent some level of diversity in the community. And I think it's a good conversation to have, and it doesn't have to be strictly just about gay people or just about people who are same sex or same gender who want to dance together. I think there's a lot of crossing of things that we all need, and people who are in kind of a diversity bracket, people who are not as well represented in the community. There's things that all of us need in order to feel more, have more access and feel more welcome. And so in that regard, there's certain themes that we can all talk about that relate to all of us. And we don't necessarily have to specify like, oh, well, I'm talking about this because I'm a gay person, or I'm talking about this because I'm a male who likes to dance with males. It's like, you know, we have a predominantly heteronormative community. The swing dance community is right now, and not just heteronormative. There's also other delineations of people that we have a lot of in our community, and it's just it's a big discussion, I think, about diversity and how to be aware of diversity and how to take action to make diversity important and included.
What would make you feel more welcome? So you can ask that question about, you know, you can also say that as the conversation that, you know, this happened, there's very few African American people or people of color really in this dance form. But what do you feel like how would you be more welcomed what would make you feel more welcomed in any place you're dancing? What would that be? What would that look like?
Yeah, I think, and I can speak only for myself because, like we were saying, there's so many different types of people who want to be involved, who maybe feel weird in some way. I think for me, one of the questions I have is, as I travel around and I teach, I'm constantly encountering different cultures and different countries, and Lindy Hop has spread since the time we started dancing to this global community where we have dancing all over the world, which is fantastic. But for example, with the LGBTQ issue, different countries and different cultures have different viewpoints on that. For example, there's been countries that I've been invited to teach in where I have declined to teach there because those countries have laws that are against LGBT people. And now, do I feel like I couldn't, go there and still be safe? I'm sure probably I could, but that's me also kind of making a statement about I don't. It's not. It has nothing to do with Lindy Hop. I don't want to go to. I don't want to work in those countries, and that's a difficult topic because Lindy Hop in its inception is about inclusivity and about. It's always been about diversity. I mean, the Savoy Ballroom was one of the first fully integrated ballrooms in America, and that really represented something. But it's really challenging, Hallie, when you're in a country. I don't know if you read my post on Facebook from a couple weeks ago, but I had someone say to me, just last month I was in the UK, and someone was talking in a conversation with me and 3 other international teachers, and they were referencing something, and they were like, "Oh, well, we don't say that because that's really faggoty." And I looked at them and I was like, I said, "Excuse me? Did you say," and it was like kind of a crowded, loud ballroom. I said, "Did you say faggoty?" And this person said, "Yeah, I said faggoty. I'm from," and then they said the country they're from. I won't say it just to, be nice. But they're like, "I'm from this place and we say faggoty. Actually, we say worse." And I was just thinking like, the spirit of, yeah, right. I know we're laughing at this, but the spirit of, and this is a student talking to the international teacher who's hired to teach a workshop. Like, you don't have any like sense of like, just be, like, I don't know, just like being
Respectful.
So this is what it, from my perspective, being a teacher and being a ballroom owner, in that situation, the way that I start to be able, like where I draw the line is I would tell that person they could no longer be there. I would actually ask that person to leave. That's how I am proactive from my perspective. I don't allow, as you probably know, if you rotate in class and you're a guy who comes up to a guy and the one guy who's leading says, "No, I don't want to dance with that guy who's following," then the guy who's leading gets asked to leave. And that is across the board. That's every class that we teach. It doesn't matter. Wow. And in that situation in a ballroom, I would do the same thing. We keep this, that's how we become proactive. So rather than sit down and try to have a conversation, once somebody crosses that line,
well,
that's how I've dealt with it in the past.
And Hallie, because I'm from Seattle as well, like the culture in Seattle, the culture in Washington, the culture in the United States, the culture on the West Coast of the United States, we have these types of, we're at a place where we can handle things in that way. The question, I guess, is how do we handle these types of issues when we're dealing with different types of cultures that have these different viewpoints? It's like, I mean, it sounds like there are certain countries where the progress that's been made towards women's rights, towards gay rights, towards
any right.
I mean, even I just recently here where I'm teaching, I had a student. I asked a guy to dance here in Vienna. And he's one of my students, and he turned me down, and I said, "Oh, are you tired?" And he goes, "No, I don't dance with guys." Yeah. And I mean, so this is different people from different cultures and different things. They have these different things. So part of me is like, I agree with you. It's like, and we should have. Part of me wants to say this. Part of me wants to say the spirit of Lindy Hop is about diversity and inclusivity. And if that's not going to be part of your value system, then what are you doing with this dance? Part of me wants to say that. Another part of me wants to say that Lindy Hop and jazz and this community, which is a wonderful community, can be a way to be a bridge for people who, I mean, like, was it Dawn or Norma who was talking about they had at Harang, they had dancers they had a Palestinian dancer and an Israeli dancer. They Lindy Hop is a way to bring people together. So it's kind of a question about like, do I, as an international teacher, do I use that as a learning moment, a teaching moment? Do I try to have it as a teaching moment?
Well, that's because to me, what you're saying though is, That's his right. That is his prerogative to say, I'm sorry, I don't dance with guys, right? And that's not a situation where I would say you then tell that person they're not allowed to be there. That's different. I'm saying in a situation where, like, if you ask somebody to dance, I can say yes or no to anybody I want. You happen to ask why. He didn't have to answer that, but he did, and so you can't really do anything about that. I think that is true. Now, why you would want to be in this community. I'm saying if you are in a situation where somebody says faggoty, or somebody says, no, I'm not going to dance with this person in a class where everybody paid, and we say in class, you can go around in class and go, I'm not going to dance with you because you're heavy. I'm not going to dance with you because you're whatever. You pick whatever you want. You only have one arm. So we wouldn't allow that. So that's how I deal with it in class. In a situation where you're social dancing, that's a little bit different. People are allowed to have their own boundaries.
Well, and also the faggoty comment was in a social situation.
Right.
It was not in a class.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
It was at a dance. That one was at a dance with a loud band, and people were standing around, and that was really a difficult one. I was sort of caught off guard by that one.
Can I say something about, from also a weekly organizer's perspective about inclusivity? And I feel like people who are watching this for perhaps to be educated on the topic might be, have this question. Sometimes we say, I want to be inclusive. And a common retort is, well, I don't like that policy, so you're being exclusive to me. And I just wanted to say, when we say that word, inclusivity, what we're really talking about is, at least that's what I'm talking about, are actions to include marginalized communities. And that as businesses, as organizers, even as a dancer who's throwing a dance party in their home, you do make choices about who you want to include and who you don't want to include. And we don't spend a lot of time on, well, I definitely don't want Greg to come over, right? But we do spend some time thinking about who are we letting into our space? And especially when you're given the responsibility of creating a community space, creating an event, creating an experience for everyone, you do put some thought into who are we asking to come out and join us? What kind of community are we growing? What kind of values are we telling them we want them to have as they go forward as being dancers? What are the values I can teach them that will allow them to integrate to a wider community beyond my place, beyond Wednesday Night Hop, when they go out into the world, what's going to give them the best tools to succeed, right? And so a lot of these choices are going to be choices that will piss some people off, that might collide against other values, and that's going to happen. And part of being an organizer or a teacher, anyone out in authority, is acknowledging that that will always happen. How we react to it is going to depend very much on our responsibility, our privilege, our position, whether we ourselves are safe to say something, whether we ourselves are emotionally capable to say something in the moment. Because Adam's right. He's a teacher. He could have made it into a teachable moment. Maybe you did. I don't know. But maybe he's just been teaching all day and he just wants to go home and sleep. Like, I feel you, dude. I am swung over right now. So, I think, I think that it's wonderful to try and open up those avenues of communication between people. I do think that that common strategy in the gay community where we said, well, come out wherever you are, let people know that you're there. Otherwise, they never know a gay person. They never know that it's your, beloved Aunt Mildred who's gay. They don't know it's Al Minns who's gay. Oh my God, Rick. So once you know someone and you're oh, but they're a good person.
People didn't know that? That was not a known thing.
I didn't know that. Maybe someone told me, I just forgot. It was one of those 7 things that happened in the class and then I just forgot. Okay. But entirely, Adam, this is your new quest, is to make sure everyone knows this.
I also want to say, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'll try to wrap this up. basically, it's an opportunity to bridge those divides and have those conversations. But if there are people who are going to not conform to what organizers and teachers are trying to tell them about the wider community, hey, you're going to want to wash your shirt so you're not smelly, more people will dance with you. Hey, don't say, discriminatory things to people, based on their racial, gender, whatever, don't do that. Like, if they're going to choose to do that, they're excluding themselves. It's not that we haven't been inclusive to marginalized communities and communities we want. When you choose to take yourself out of a community too, that's kind of on you. That's due to a person's preference. Sorry, go ahead, Hallie.
No, so there are a couple things that you don't, from my perspective, if you go with just how many people in the world are gay, how many people in the world are straight, when you put together a room full of people dancing, it's a 10% of the room might be gay. We don't know. And so for me, Adam, you lead. So people think guy leading. Sounds like, Lori, you follow for the most part, though we all teach and we can do both roles, but your traditional role for being in class seems to correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understood you say is you generally follow, again, so people look at you, would not assume that you're a gay person. They look at me, regardless of what I'm doing, they probably go, oh, you're gay. That girl definitely gay, but I lead. So now you have a question, like for all the years that I have done this, a little bit the way I deal with it is to almost not address it, if that makes any sense. Like, I teach salsa dancing now. Now talk about sort of kind of environment where men lead and women follow. That said, the same way you just go about doing the thing and you become a role model because people look at you and go, I'm kind of like her. But what I will say about taking class, if you are say a couple wants to go and take, 2 guys or 2 girls, it doesn't matter, and you rotate. If you're in a mostly heterosexual environment, which all dances are, unless you're at a gay dance, almost all of them are going to be heterosexual dances with a very small percentage of being gay people, or I'm just going to use that term for now. Let's just go with that because I'm older. In a rotation, all of a sudden let's say I'm a woman and I'm a gay woman and I'm leading, and I get all the women who are, let's say, following. They come to me, I'm dancing with women. I'm like, oh, that's great. If I'm a follower, I'm going to dance with 99% guys. And I go, I don't really want to take class because I don't really want to spend my time dancing with men. So that's the thing that I find happens a lot. So to try to encourage people to take class, one of the problems is that the environment doesn't actually support them. And it's not anybody's fault. It is just the thing. So if you're a woman who likes women and you want to dance with women, taking a class that is not geared towards not the heterosexual environment is really hard. You have to actually take yourself out of the just, whatever population people are Lindy hopping. So that's a weird thing because we want to make it comfortable, but then they're like, yeah, but I still have to dance with all guys. You might make it very comfortable for me to be gay in your class. Look at you and you're a good role model and whatever, doesn't matter. So that's a kind of a weird thing. And I clearly never wanted to have a gay club. I wanted to have an environment where everybody came together, but I wonder every once in a while, why aren't there more gay people who are coming here and taking class? And I realize it's because mostly you're going to dance with not gay people.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Totally. I mean, I think that, another thing to say is we're all of us on this panel are, at least as far as I know, are American. Okay. And what I see is really different is what's going on globally. I see that, things that we take for granted in, San Francisco, for example, about, we don't say, guys and girls anymore when we're referring to leaders and followers. We keep things gender neutral. We have lots of different ballrooms and clubs that have some gay influence or some. I think that is kind of a little bit of a phenomenon, and I think we may be a little bit comfortable with it in terms of like where we're at. What I've seen traveling around is that, you know, I want to protect the innocent or you know, I don't want to name any names, but I mean, there are same-sex couples that have faced a lot of adversity in this community, in contest rules, in sponsorships from national teams where others get sponsorship, and because they're a same-sex couple, they don't get sponsorship. These are realities that people face, and when you decide to do something as crazy as swing dance and try to make that into a living, you know, these types of adversities can be real setbacks, especially when you're trying to focus on art. Number one, when you're dealing with, you know, I mean, just recently I had a promoter who I've just started working with a dancer who's a guy, and I had someone mention to me, you know, if you want to get hired by this person, they probably wouldn't go for that. Meaning like me teaching with another guy. And it's like these types of things are still there. So you've got the kind of, I guess if you're Hallie, what you're talking about, I think is really valuable from the sort of student and participant perspective. I also think that there's some adversity on the people who are trying to be professional dancers with this side, people who are trying to be competitive dancers. And part of it has to do with these underlying values that we have. And part of it has to do also with exactly what you just said, which is that without having more visibility of different types of people in the community, people who are different don't necessarily feel like they can be included, because everything is sort of status quo, you know? I mean, I have to say, I thought it was a little bit interesting. Rick, you had posted a follow-up to the Jack and Jill discussion, and reading down some of the comments on Yehoodi, a lot of the comments were very nice, but some of the comments were kind of like not so supportive. They were like, well, you know, we already have a very diverse community. Things are already really good the way that they are, you know. So I think there's, and also, you know, I have to say this because it really struck me. There was a person, when I posted on Facebook, I posted this big post saying, first of all, I thought that it was really important that queer people and same-sex couples be the ones talking about this, which is great, and it's great that now we're having this discussion. But I had someone respond to me who was kind of upset with me about my post, because they basically said, like, you know, I live in a country that's really prejudiced towards gay people, and you're complaining about, you know, not being able to, you know, having someone say something kind of rude to you, you know, when I'm in a position really of power, being an international teacher. I'm flown around to do this, and person who faces like really serious adversity every day. And I think, like I was saying before, the question that's really on my mind is, as Lindy Hop continues to grow, it's not so much about what do we do in places where guys dancing with guys is already normal and gay people are already accepted. You know, those places are already doing great things. And of course, we can model some of what we do off of the successes of people who've done things in those communities. The question is, how do we deal with a culture that basically is like, hey, we, or a place, I don't want to say a culture, but a country or a place that has a Lindy Hop scene, but they, you know, it's really, really accepted to, you know, be prejudiced in some way. How do we deal with that as a community? Because my thought on this is that, you know, that it's kind of at odds with the values of our dance and of our community. But at the same time, when something is so deeply set into the zeitgeist of a group of people, I mean, like this person who said the faggoty comment, I don't think they were being rude. I think I think they thought they were like being funny, and like they're like, oh, you know, we're really known for having a real dirty sense of humor and da 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 da. And it's like, whereas in America, it's like that word is really no longer acceptable. I mean, it's, so it's like, that's what I'm saying is like, how do we carry forward the values of the Savoy? How do we carry forward those values as the dance grows? Because at the same time, like if someone is homophobic, okay, you can't say you can't be a Lindy Hopper. I mean, you can't do that. So what do we do about that? How do we open up people's minds? I think there's a lot of answers.
I first think modeling is one of the best ways you can do it. You model moving forward. We are not in a position where we're going to change all hearts and minds. But I mean, you think there are a few things that I think we all believe, that between music, dance, and food, those are common denominators. I mean, those are cross-cultural things that will bring people together. And if you choose to Lindy Hop and you start to see, again, you're not going to see a lot of modeling of men dancing with men and women dancing with women. You just don't see a lot of it because it doesn't exist a lot. And it's not that it has to exist. It just is. I think the point that you're getting at is, how do we make it so people are safe to dance with each other, or people are safe to ask somebody to dance and to not be harmed, and to be accepted for whoever they are. But that is like, that's the big question in the world. How do we change one person at a time? That's how we do it. We do it one person at a time.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say this because I said it to Rick last night, and it's just sort of a crazy thing to just process, and so I want to put it out there. I was in discussions about possibly teaching next year in a country in Africa, going there to do a special project. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, really exciting. And if you go on Wikipedia, there's a great thing that for every country it describes, they kind of give a rating for LGBTQ rights and safety. Cool. And in this country, I could be arrested and put in jail for life for being a gay person. So I was like, well, maybe that's not, maybe not
don't
a great
go.
place to, maybe don't go. Exactly. But it's just, I just like, for the sake of the people who are going to be watching this, it's like, just to take 2 seconds to wrap your head around the fact that that's like something that we even have to think about. I mean, that's crazy. Like, how often do you think about like, oh, I wanted to go to Disney World, but in Florida, if you have red hair, you might be in prison for the rest of your life.
Every person of color, Adam, every single person of color thinks about this. That's the thing. I look at you and I might think, gay boy, but I might think that. But I think in the straight world, I don't think that's how people wander around thinking, oh, that's a gay man. They see a guy dancing. So
Right.
In fact, probably like I don't know about outside of this country, but that is what people are dealing with every single day. We're talking about it in terms of LGBTQ issues, which I think is important because that's who we are. And that's what we're bringing to the table. And what can we do to support? In this particular case, I'm just going to say those of us who are gay or outside of the norm spectrum, whatever they want to call it, because that's what we can talk about. That's all we can talk about. But what you're talking about is something that people deal with every single day, every single place, especially in this country.
No, absolutely. I guess I'm just saying that I think that Lindy Hop is a really happy place. If Lindy Hop was like, if Lindy Hop
were like tango.
I mean, I'm saying if Lindy Hop was like a country, it's like a very happy country.
It's a happy country.
And it's
very happy country.
Yes, and sometimes it can be hard to point out something inside of a happy situation that still has room for improvement. But I think that I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer of this conversation, but I just think that there's, even just having this discussion and letting people hear these ideas and these things, there are still a lot of things that could be done there's still a lot of work that could be done. And awareness is the first step, I think, or curiosity is the first step.
Yeah. Can I say one thing that I was telling Rick I really wanted to get to, sorry, Rick, is to say that basically this is a process for everyone. So wherever you are in the world, wherever you're like listening to this podcast, like no one's saying you have to do anything huge and change people's minds right away. It is very contextual, whether you're in a small place, you have a lot of power and privilege, and you know, you can be in San Francisco and have hundreds of people come to your dance every week, you have more power to work with. If you are in a small scene with 3 dancers who come, they're all homophobes, but at least you're teaching them Lindy Hop. You have less to work with, right? You have less to, you know. So I really agree with Hallie. You know, it's one person at a time, talking to each other, helping each other. I'm not perfect. I used gender pronouns all yesterday. Shit. And no one is perfect just by virtue of who they are and where they're from. So everyone just keep working it, one person at a time, one pronoun at a time, one scene at a time, whatever you're comfortable and able to do.
I think that I just want to say one last thing, which I don't know very much about because I don't compete in the West Coast swing community. But I do think if you take a look at the West Coast swing community, they're really struggling right now trying to figure out how to change the rules and regulations of national, international competition and points and stuff, which, you know, I don't know a lot about, but you was starting to watch it change. So 25 years later, because it wasn't changing 25 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I kind of hate to be the cutter offer person, but I think we do need to at least stop the conversation for now, or at least this part of the conversation. As I suspected, a lot more questions than answers, a lot more challenges than just sort of obvious ways forward. But I think we've done some really great work just to put out things that people can think about and to start conversations. For those of you who want to keep talking about this, Yehoodi is a great forum to come to. You can also, Adam has a Facebook group that we'll post the link to. You can go in there and converse. But most importantly, talk to each other. Like talk in your community, talk at your venue, talk at your scene. How do we make sure that people feel included, that we have as a diverse dance community as we can? But I definitely want to thank all of our awesome expert panel for contributing all of your perspectives. And it's just, I've learned a whole lot from this. I'm so glad we got to do this. Thanks, guys.
Hey, I'm Jo Hoffberg, and if you like this business and you would like to see more of this business, please support us over at Patreon by going to patreon.com/Yehoodi. And this way, we can get supported and we can keep delivering some awesome content to you guys. Why? Because I'm American. Yeah.